before we get into the scheduled items, may I invite you all to stand so we can observe a moment's silence for all the lives lost in the tragedy. You may be seated. We are extremely delighted to be here for the opening act of the annual meetings. We have with us our very distinguished guests on the platform. And to start us, we have the President of the House of Councillors of Morocco, His Excellency Senator Inam Mayara. Born in Ez Samara in 1968, he has a distinguished career in Moroccan politics and trade union. He began his political journey with elected positions at the municipal and regional levels. As an active member of the General Union of Moroccan Workers, Mayara rose through its rank, eventually becoming Secretary General in May 2017. Within the Istiqlal Party, he held various significant roles, including serving as regional coordinator for the southern region as a member of the National Council of the Istiqlal Party for 3 consecutive mandates. Mayara has an academic background as an engineer laureate of the Agronomic and Veterinary Institute. He has had several parliamentary mandates in the Chamber of Councillors from 2009 to 2015 and from 2015 to 2021. And he was elected for a third 6-year term in October 2021 elections. Currently, he holds the position of President of the Chamber of Councillors. Please help me welcome him to address the forum.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سيد وزير مكلف بالعلاقة مع البرلمان، سيد نائب رئيس مجلس النواب، سيد المدير العام المساعد لصندوق النقد الدولي، سيد المدير العام المساعد لسياسة التنمية والشراكات بالبنك الدولي، زميلاتي زملائي البرلمانيين المحترمين، سيدات والسادة الخبراء والباحثون، أيها الحضور الكريم، في البداية يشرفني أن أتناول الكلمة باسم برلمان المملكة المغربية للترحيب بكم في أشغال هذا المنتدى البرلماني العالمي الذي تنظمه الشبكة البرلمانية للبنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي بشراكة مع مجلسي برلمان المملكة المغربية، وذلك بمناسبة استقبال مدينة مراكش لأشغال الاجتماعات السنوية للبنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي لسنة 2023، وهي مناسبة لنا جميعا من أجل مناقشة المستجدات الاقتصادية العالمية وتعميق النقاش حول التحديات المرتبطة بها والفرص الكبيرة التي تتيحها من أجل بناء مستقبل مشترك يضمن الرفاه والازدهار لكل شعوب العالم. وباعتبارنا ممثلين لهذه الشعوب فنحن مدعوون للعمل على بناء أجندة برلمانية عالمية تمكن من ابتكار أساليب جديدة وعملية لمواجهة كل التعقيدات الاقتصادية والمالية المطروحة على جدول أعمالنا لاستعادة الإطار التنموي العالمي الخالق للقيمة المضافة وللفرص وفق منهجية عادلة ومنصفة ودامجة للجميع. كما أود أن أعرب عن عميق امتنان بلادي للبنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي على الإبقاء على تنظيم اجتماعاتهم السنوية بمدينة مراكش بالرغم من الزلزال الذي ضرب منطقة الحوز المجاورة لها منذ أسابيع. ونحن إذ نقدر عاليا هذه البادرة فإننا نعتبرها شهادة قوية من هذه المؤسسات العالمية المرموقة على قدرة المملكة المغربية تحت القيادة الرشيدة لصاحب الجلالة الملك محمد السادس نصره الله على التدبير السريع للتحديات وحسن إدارتها. ونحن نعتز كثيرا بهذه الثقة المؤسساتية الكبيرة. كما نعتز بتنظيم إفريقيا للمرة الثانية للاجتماعات السنوية لصندوق النقد الدولي والبنك العالمي، وذلك بعد 50 سنة من الغياب، وهو ما يجعل من التنمية في القارة الإفريقية أحد الملفات التي تتصدر جدول أعمال الاجتماعات السنوية لسنة 2023، خاصة وأن قارتنا الإفريقية تمر من فترة تحولات كبرى تستلزم عناية خاصة منا جميعا من أجل تطوير مساهمة القارة في الاقتصاد العالمي وتحسين مؤشراتها الاجتماعية وتقليص الهوة التنموية بينها وباقي قارات العالم. وهذا التوجه هو أساسيات الدبلوماسية المغربية تحت القيادة الرشيدة لجلالة الملك حفظه الله، والذي يهدف إلى بناء إطار شراكات واعدة مع دول القارة مبني أساساً على مفاهيم التنمية المشتركة وتبادل الممارسات الفضلى والتمويل الذكي والناجع ومبادئ التعاون الدولي العادل والمنصف. حضرات السيدات والسادة، يجتاز العالم اليوم فترة مليئة بالتحديات الاقتصادية الكبرى، فمستويات نمو الناتج الداخلي الخام العالمي لا زالت لم تسترجع مستوياتها الطبيعية، حيث سجلت سنة 2022 نسبة نمو في حدود 3.5% لتصل إلى حدود 3% سنة 2023 وسنة 24. كما أن معدلات التضخم تسجل مستويات قياسية وصلت إلى 8.7 سنة 2022 وإلى حوالي 6.8 سنة 23 وستصل إلى 5.2% سنة 2024. وهذه المعطيات تؤكد أن عالمنا يجتاز مرحلة ركود تضخمي بمجموعة من دول العالم، وبالموازاة مع المعطيات الاقتصادية المقلقة يعيش عالمنا على وقع استمرار تحديات الحرب في أوكرانيا وتقلبات أسواق الطاقة واستمرار الخلل على مستوى سلاسل القيمة والإمداد وأزمة الأمن الغذائي، بالإضافة إلى استفحال ظاهرة التغيرات المناخية وتراجع عدد كبير من المؤشرات الاجتماعية خاصة في دول الجنوب. كما تسجل معطيات صندوق النقد الدولي استمرار المديونية العالمية في نسق تصاعدي لتناهز حسب آخر تحديث 238% من الناتج الداخلي العالمي. إن المأزق الاقتصادي الذي يعرفه العالم بجانب التحديات الجديدة التي يواجهها النظام العالمي من قبيل الصراعات التجارية ومستجدات الثورة الصناعية الخامسة وإعادة تشكيل سلاسل القيمة العالمية وانعكاسات ذلك على منظومة الإنتاج وخلق القيمة المضافة ورهانات السيادة الصحية والطاقية والغذائية، يحتم علينا كبرلمانيين الاطلاع بأدوارنا الكاملة في الدفاع عن المصالح الفضلى للشعوب، وذلك من خلال العمل على ابتكار تشريعات جديدة قادرة على مواكبة التحولات ومواجهة التحديات، إضافة إلى ضرورة العمل والتنسيق مع الفاعلين الحكوميين لبناء نماذج اقتصادية دامجة وقادرة على تحيين الممارسات الاقتصادية لتكون في مستوى التحديات الاقتصادية المطروحة علينا. كما ينبغي العمل خاصة على مستوى إعداد الموازنات على تبني منهجية توجه الاستثمار العمومي إلى استثمارات أكثر نجاعة وإدماجا لكل فئات المجتمع بأسلوب ذكي مبني على النجاعة والنتائج، مع استحضار دائم لأهمية الإصلاح المستمر للمنظومات الجبائية الوطنية وتطوير أبعاد الحكامة والمسؤولية في آليات تدبير الماليات العمومية. حضرات السيدات والسادة، إن المؤسسات المتعددة الأطراف مدعوة إلى مواكبة النماذج التنموية الوطنية الجادة من خلال وضع منظومة متقدمة للمواكبة التقنية لاستراتيجيات الدول في التحول التنموي القادرة على توفير منصات اقتصادية سيادية تمكن من توفير شروط بثاق إطار اقتصادي خالق للفرص للجميع وخاصة الشباب من جهة، وتمكن من تعزيز الفرص الاقتصادية للمقاولات خاصة المتوسطة والصغيرة من جهة أخرى، لأن النمو الغني بفرص الشغل يبقى هو الحل الأمثل للإدماج والقضاء على الفقر بكل أبعاده. ومن جانب آخر فمؤسسات التمويل المتعددة الأطراف وعلى رأسها صندوق النقد الدولي والبنك الدولي يوجدون في صلب الديناميات التنموية لكل دول العالم، وهم مدعوون بالتنسيق مع الحكومات إلى ضرورة تطوير أساليب مبتكرة من أجل تقوية تسخير الاستثمار والتمويل المؤسسي لصالح التنمية وفق أجندة تهتم بالأولويات المرتبطة بمكافحة التغيرات المناخية وتعزيز تنفيذ التزامات الدول في موضوع الهجرة وتقليص الفجوة الرقمية على المستويات الوطنية والإقليمية والدولية، علاوة على بناء جيل جديد من المبادرات المتعلقة بتعزيز التمكين الاقتصادي والاجتماعي للمرأة والشباب، وذلك بالإضافة إلى وضع إطار عالمي جديد من أجل معالجة أعباء الدين التي تثقل كاهل العديد من الاقتصادات منخفضة الدخل والاقتصادات الصاعدة، وتفرمل قدرتها على الاستثمار في التعليم والحماية الاجتماعية والرعاية الصحية وتطوير البنية التحتية. وفي هذا السياق فإننا ندعو الشبكة البرلمانية للبنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي للتفكير في بلورة تصور عملي لبناء أجندة برلمانية عالمية من أجل تحول تنموي منصف ودامج تمكن من وضع دليل للممارسات الاقتصادية البرلمانية الفضلى ومواكبة البرلمانات الوطنية في تقوية مسارات إعداد الموازنات العامة على المستوى التقني من أجل تحسين نجاعة وإدماج الاستثمارات العمومية من جهة وتسريع تنفيذ أهداف التنمية المستدامة من جهة أخرى، بالإضافة إلى تكوين البرلمانيين وأطر البرلمانات في الآليات الجديدة للتشريع المتعلقة بأخلاقيات الذكاء الاصطناعي والمالية المشفرة وتخزين البيانات الكبرى ومكافحة الجرائم الإلكترونية وغيرها من التشريعات الخاصة بالتحديات الاقتصادية الجديدة. حضرات السيدات والسادة، إن الاهتمام بالقارة الإفريقية يشكل أحد المداخل الرئيسية لأسس نظام اقتصادي عالمي عادل ومنصف، فهذه القارة تحتاج اليوم إلى جهود دولية كبيرة خاصة من مؤسسات التمويل المرجعية العالمية من أجل سد الفجوة التنموية بين دول القارة ودول الشمال. وهنا ندعو المتدخلين الماليين العالميين من أبناك وصناديق استثمار إلى العمل على ابتكار أساليب تمويل ملائمة لحاجيات القارة الإفريقية، خاصة فيما يتعلق بالاستثمارات في الإمكانيات منطقة التبادل الحرة القارية زليكاف، وتعزيز الربط اللوجستي بين دول القارة، وتطوير منصات صناعية وفضاءات عمل المقاولات الناشئة، ودعم الإنتاج الفلاحي لضمان السيادة والأمن الغذائي، وذلك من أجل تعزيز التجارة البينية القارية كمدخل أساسي لتقوية المنظومات الاقتصادية للدول الإفريقية. وفي الختام، وإذ نجدد الترحيب بكم بمدينة مراكش، فإننا نتمنى أن يصدر عن أشغال المنتدى البرلماني العالمي توصيات عملية ومبادرات ناجعة تسهم في بناء عالم أكثر اندماجاً وإدماجاً وعدلاً وإنصافاً، كما نطمح ليكون هذا اللقاء بداية مسار برلماني جديد يكون فيه الفاعل البرلماني مساهماً في بناء معالم مستقبل يتسع للجميع ومليء بالثقة والأمل لكل شعوب العالم. كل التوفيق والسداد، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
We thank His Excellency for an excellent opening address to the parliamentarians, and we take note of the needs. At this time, we will have a message from the network's chairman. This will come in the form of a video.
Global Parliamentary Forum for the World Bank and International Monetary Fund annual meetings in Marrakesh. My name is Liam Byrne. It's my privilege to be the elected chair of this extraordinary network that brings together over 2,000 parliamentarians in 140 countries. We meet together at a critical time. Many countries around the world, the 7 giants that now block the path towards the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Agreement seem to loom larger than ever. Poverty, hunger, disease, lost learning, debt, conflict and climate change are all challenges which are getting bigger and bigger. These meetings come at a critical time, therefore, for the world, but they also come at a critical time in the evolution of the World Bank and the IMF. You'll hear over the course of the forum lots more about the extraordinary programme of reform now underway at the World Bank. You'll hear more about the IMF's innovative new tools that are now being made available to countries around the world. The forum provides a critical opportunity for parliamentarians to both learn from each other, but also to learn from the leaders of the World Bank and the IMF, to think about the challenges ahead, and to redouble our efforts among richer countries to do more, and in each of our countries to push ahead with the programme of reform that delivers for the people that we came into politics to serve. It is my great regret that I am not able to be with you at this meeting, at my party conference in Liverpool, in England. But these fora today are just part of what is a transformation of our work that includes big meetings like this, but also online discussions, together with a radical new training programme, together with McGill University, training up parliamentarians in the skills that they need to make an impact in Parliament, together with new digital tools like the podcast that we're launching this week. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about the outcome of the annual meeting's Global Parliamentary Forum. My huge thanks to my vice chairs for helping structure the discussion on climate finance, on digitalisation, and on the reform programme in the IMF and the world. I look forward to hearing from you about what other things you would like to see the network do next year to help you drive forward the development we desperately need.
All right. We are indeed sorry that our chairman, Liam, is unable to be with us, but we parliamentarians understand the demands of politics. After all, we get to our positions through a process. Ladies and gentlemen, the international economy is at a pivotal moment after business and industry models have not only been challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic, but are now being tested by a more uncertain geopolitical and geoeconomic environment. How to navigate these developments and simultaneously accelerate progress on critical common goals, from energy transition to safeguarding nature and climate, is top of mind for decision makers worldwide. In this global context, the Parliamentary Network on the IMF, on the World Bank, and the IMF, in partnership with the bank and the fund, has organized today's event, co-hosted by the House of Representatives and the House of Councillors of Morocco. And we have already heard from His Excellency Inam Mayaro. This session is intended to provide an update to parliamentarians, and we are very, very pleased to be joined by the top leadership of both the fund and the bank. Our next speaker is the Deputy Managing Director of the fund, Her Excellency Antoinette Seya. Before assuming her current role at the IMF, Antoinette Monsieur Seya was a distinguished visiting fellow at the Center for Global Development and co-chair of the 19th replenishment of the International Development Association, IDA 19, the World Bank's Fund for the Poorest. She previously oversaw the significantly enhanced the International Monetary Fund's engagement with its sub-Saharan African members as director of the African Department between July 2008 and August 2016. As Minister of Finance in post-conflict Liberia between January 2006 through to June 2008, she led the country through the clearance of its long-standing multilateral debt arrears. The HIPC decision points, the Paris Club, buyback of its commercial debt, and its first poverty reduction strategy, significantly strengthening its public finances and championing public financial management reform. No easy feat, we all know that. Ms. Seya worked for the bank for 17 years, including as country director for Benin, Niger, and Togo, senior country economist for Pakistan, Afghanistan, as well as an advisor in the bank's operation policy, vice presidency, and as assistant to its principal managing director. Before joining the bank, Ms. Seya worked in economic advisory position in Liberia's Ministries of Finance and Planning, a very, very distinguished public servant. It gives me great pleasure to invite her to bring her remarks.
Thank you so very much, Minister Fort, for those very kind remarks. And thank you for the opportunity to address this very important group. And very good morning to everyone. Welcome to our first annual meetings here in Morocco, and the first in 50 years on the continent, as Senator said as well. So before I begin, of course, to acknowledge the very difficult time it is for Morocco in the face of the horrific tragedy that Moroccans encountered with the earthquake. And Moroccans continue to show such incredible resilience as they return to daily activities. And I want to share a sentiment expressed by all of us at the IMF. We gather here not just to discuss global economic challenges, but clearly also in support of Morocco and its people. You have our deepest condolences, and we very much appreciate you hosting us. We are deeply grateful to you for doing so at a time like this. So over the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you where the global economy stands, what policies we see as critical, and how each of you as lawmakers in your own countries can help to advance those policies. So on the outlook, the good news is that the global economy is recovering from multiple shocks, and we have made tangible progress in the fight against inflation. The risk of a hard landing of the global economy has generally receded. I say generally because there remain significant challenges still. But as you will see in our latest World Economic Outlook report tomorrow, this is a slow recovery. This should not come as a surprise, given the current context marked by a fragmented environment and inflation that is declining but still high. We have said in the past that we expect global growth to be around 3%, near its lowest level in decades. We also expect recovery to be uneven. Of the major economies, we see strong momentum in the US, in India, and other emerging markets, but economic activity is slowing elsewhere, including in China, in the Euro area, and in sub-Saharan Africa. Around the world, trillions of dollars of output have been lost compared to pre-pandemic trends, and this economic scarring is also unevenly distributed. Indeed, low-income and vulnerable countries are being hit especially hard. And this combination of a slow global recovery, along with dwindling buffers, rising levels of debt, and higher costs of debt servicing, are significantly constraining policymakers' ability to undertake necessary investments to support growth and protect the vulnerable. So how should countries navigate this difficult outlook? First, they must preserve their macro stability, and to do that, central banks will need to retain their focus on bringing prices down by maintaining a tight monetary stance. Policymakers should also stand ready to safeguard financial stability. But ultimately, to heal economic scars, protect the vulnerable segments of our society and energize growth, we need a renewed emphasis on first-generation reforms. This is where we need your help in advancing reforms that alleviate the most critically binding constraints in your country's economies. Let me give you a few examples of such reforms. They include improving governance, reducing excessive regulation to make it easier for people to open and run a business, and facilitating trade. All of these can energize investment, can improve investor confidence, and can ease macroeconomic pressures. And IMF research shows that if such first-generation reforms are prioritized and appropriately sequenced and bundled, they can boost output levels by up to 8% in the course of 4 years. And this is indeed quite significant. So the fund is therefore working with country authorities to support these foundational reforms as a path to navigate the current economic environment. But as I have mentioned earlier, we need your help. As lawmakers, you have the ability to prioritize and institutionalize such reforms in your countries. Of course, policy challenges going forward are even greater. They notably include dealing with the impact of climate change. And here I want to offer our deepest condolences to those affected by the tragic flooding in Libya. These disasters demonstrate the very real and human costs of climate change. I know we will be discussing the issues of climate and digital transformation later today, and throughout the annual meetings, conversations will take place on how to navigate these big transformations in an environment that has become more difficult in no small part because of global fragmentation. But countries do not only face long-term challenges, they must also tackle economic difficulties that stem from terms of trade shocks or tighter financial conditions. Some, mostly rich countries, may have the resources to cushion the impact of such transformations and shocks. But the overwhelming majority of countries relies on international insurance mechanisms, collectively known as the global financial safety net. And at the center of the safety net is the IMF, which pools resources of its membership and acts as a cooperative lender of last resort. The COVID-19 crisis is a good example of the IMF fulfilling this critical function. And since the pandemic, we have provided financial support of around $313 billion to 96 countries. Through our most recent $650 billion allocation of special drawing rights, countries received liquidity at an unprecedented speed and scale, helping to finance essential imports such as medicines, food, and energy. Protecting countries against shocks contributes to stability beyond borders. It is a global public good. But the IMF's resources to protect countries against such shocks have shrunk relative to the size of total global liabilities. They have also become dependent on temporary borrowed resources. This is why the international community must come together to bolster the fund's permanent resources and complete the 16th quota review by December this year. Additionally, and here I want to make a plea to our wealthier members, the IMF continues lending to low-income countries at concessional interest rates for which it needs resources. So please help us close the subsidy gap in our Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust. This will allow us to lend to poor countries at zero interest rates, giving them relief in today's high interest rate environment. So let me conclude by saying this. We have significant challenges before us, no doubt about that, but we also have a path to overcome them. The successful navigation of that path rests as much on each of you in your role within your countries as it does on us coming together as the international community. So I hope we can count on your support, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Managing Director. You have set the stage for we parliamentarians to think deeply about our role and how we will deploy ourselves when our finance ministers return home with the news that they can't deliver all of the ask, and that a high level of discipline is required in order for us to successfully chart the path ahead. Distinguished colleagues, our next speaker is the Senior Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnerships at the bank, Axel von Trotzenberg. He is, as many of you should know, a prominent figure at the bank, serving as Vice President for Concessional Finance and Global Partnerships since August 2009. In this role, Axel leads policy negotiations and replenishment processes for important initiatives like the International Development Association, Highly Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, and the Global Environment Facility, the GEF. He also oversees the bank's trust fund portfolio and plays a key role in various global initiatives and innovative financing mechanisms, including the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria. Prior to this, he served as country director for Colombia and Mexico, and early for Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay. In these positions, he managed substantial lending and analytical programs, contributing to the development efforts of these countries. Axel has a rich history at the bank, and we look forward to hearing his address. Please help me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Marlene, Senator Mayara, and my friend and the Deputy Managing Director, Antoine Taillet. Distinguished parliamentarians, good morning. Before I also start, I would like to express on behalf of the World Bank our solidarity with, as well as our condolences to the King, the government of Morocco, as well as the people of Morocco, about this tragic loss that occurred exactly 1 month ago. I think what has been actually quite impressive and also inspiring is the resilience of the communities to deal with this tragic loss. And I think this is also always a positive sign that people during times of adversity are able to stand up again and rebuild their communities. And it is then important that the international community not only shows its solidarity, but also its support. We have clearly expressed our support for the reconstruction, but also on a small token of our solidarity, we started a campaign within the World Bank for the victims here in Morocco, but also the victims in Libya. And we gathered about, I think, around $560,000 that will be provided to communities to support them during this very, very difficult time. Ladies and gentlemen, what is also very important, I think symbolically, is that we are gathering here in Marrakesh, not only to celebrate the enormous advances this country has made in terms of development, but also to draw again attention to Africa. And it is important to always recall 50 years ago in Nairobi, this was an important event, certainly for the World Bank, as the then president of the World Bank really redirected the World Bank towards poverty reduction as one of the, if not the main driver of our operations. And this still remains relevant today. The poverty mandate stays central to the bank. But we have also had a whole discussion in the bank is that we may need to actually also take into account other global challenges. We have seen that we have gone through a terrible COVID crisis that has affected the entire world. We have seen that climate change is affecting our everyday life, wherever you are living, and that you can no longer insulate yourself, but these are global challenges that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed also by global institutions like the World Bank. This is one of the reasons why there has been a huge discussion at the bank in updating our mission and vision. And that led to that we will stay to our vision is to end poverty, but on a livable planet, meaning that we need to combine our fight against poverty also in conjunction with addressing these global challenges, because these global challenges like climate change are affecting increasingly our success of the international community to reduce poverty. And there is another argument to it. A month ago, the United Nations General Assembly had a midterm review of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the midterm review is sobering and, quite frankly, bad. Only 15% has been achieved to date at midterm review. So it is also a call upon everybody. What can we do more? How can we drive harder the development agenda and potentially recover lost ground? This is partly what also has motivated our evolution roadmap at the World Bank. The reflection is, yes, we have been stepping up massively during COVID times, and that was necessary because of the crisis. But we also need to understand that the development challenges remain massive, and we need to step up, and we need to think how we can do better. And that is the reason why we have been over the last year so much engaged on this. Clearly what we needed to do first is to look at the strategic direction of the organization. So that is captured by the mission and vision statement on this. But what is also equally clear is that we need to have much more attention to, in our fight against poverty, of these global challenges. Climate is one. Fragility, Senator mentioned also, for example, digitalization. There's a huge risk that particularly low-income countries are being left behind. And that is not acceptable. So we need to actually redouble those efforts. And I think these discussions in the World Bank have been actually quite good. We have been looking at various aspects how we can respond on this. One is clearly also financing. Financing needs to be scaled up, and here we have been looking at our non-concessional arm, the IBRD, where we have identified a whole number of measures how we can expand our financial firepower. That was in a first step in April at the spring meetings, where we identified measures that could increase our financial capabilities or lending capabilities by $50 billion over 10 years. And we have now identified another set of measures that could further enhance our financial capacity. These include measures from hybrid capital to also portfolio guarantees, and seeing how we can use in different way our callable capital. These are measures that are necessary to advance our capacity, but we have also not to lose sight of the soft loan part. This is the IDA, International Development Association. In our last round, we have succeeded to have an envelope of $93 billion. And that is good news, but it is not such a good news that the needs are enormous. And here are a couple of important areas. We need to see how we can actually be ready for more support during crisis times. Our crisis window has been running out of money because of the multiple crises countries have been confronting. So we are trying to get for our midterm review for IDA additional resources mobilized from donors. Secondly, we need to look at the next round that starts being negotiated in 2024. And what we would like to have is ambition, total ambition. And I hope that you will support us on this. What has been a good sign is that the G20 has called for an ambitious IDA 21. We would like to have this an absolute record. And this is what is needed. What is also as a footnote is, because I see here many colleagues from Africa, that we have over the last couple of years really shifted our operations towards Africa. If you're looking at 2000, we had about 15% of our commitments going to Africa. Now it is in the 40 to 50% range. And just to give you a size for Africa, in the last 2 years, on every year, we would commit around $34 billion only to Africa. And this trend is going to continue. And this is something we will need to work hard on, because this is also one of the challenges. And this is also the importance, I think, of these annual meetings, that in the first time in 50 years we have this meeting, and to give the additional importance, but also momentum to our joint support towards Africa. Clearly, money is important. What is equally important for the World Bank is that we are not only providing money, we're providing knowledge, we're providing technical assistance, and this knowledge agenda needs to first to be transformed so that we actually can provide the best possible policy advice, but also see how we can actually embrace many new things on the data revolution, on AI, to the front line. And on here we are working very, very hard on this. This requires in all also the redefinition of partnerships. Partnerships with our traditional partners of governments and also multilateral institutions. But what's equally important is that we are seeing the opportunities with, particularly also with the private sector. If you are thinking of big data, you think with AI, you see here many, many private sector operators working, and it is actually exciting to see new partnerships that can actually benefit the countries we like to serve. But I also would like to mention this, the partnership with you. It is very, very important that there is the political backing of the multilateral institutions. And I'm not only talking about the World Bank, I'm talking about other multilateral development banks. Antoinette was just talking about the IMF. What is at stake is multilateralism, and that needs to be supported if we want to address the big challenges of today and tomorrow. And that will require strong multilateral institutions across the board, from the UN to the multilateral development banks. We need this support, and that support will have to come also from you. And I think that is one of the things why we think at the bank that this parliamentarian network is so important. We will need the contacts. We need your support because it will require also a lot of explaining in parliaments why it matters and why we jointly can make a difference, not only in addressing the big challenges of today, but to keep the momentum, be it on the SDGs, but also be it on the hard parts of fragility and the further development of Africa. Africa has a lot of opportunities, but we will need also the political support, and that will need to be assured through networks like yours. And what we hope is that we can give this an extra push. It is necessary. Today is not an easy time. Many people talking about crisis, but the bank also thinks about opportunities, and there is optimism also that we can do it together. And that is my plea to you. Let's move aggressively, because only together we can make a difference. Thank you.
May I ask you to give our panelists another round of applause, because they have tremendously assisted us in keeping the session on time. I think the presentations we have heard have demonstrated that this event does create the space where we parliamentarians can hear firsthand what is happening. We do not have to rely on the messages being brought home by our ministers of finance and other financial officials, but you have heard firsthand. I think three takeaways as I close the session. The call is for a new vision among parliamentarians to build a new international agenda, and that was the message from His Excellency Mayara. And Madame Seyo has emphasized the need for new generation reforms, appropriately sequenced and bundled. And so we will have to understand when the various pieces of legislation for improved governance have to go through the Parliament, that our support will be required. And we also have to reduce the unnecessary bureaucracy and regulations that make life difficult for the people that we serve. We have to simplify, but we have to preserve and safeguard our economic stability. And what an excellent point that Axel ended on. We have to move forward together. He has called us to think of our partnership in a new way, because the bank understands and is readying itself for more support in times of crises. But it is not just about the money. It is also about the knowledge and the technical assistance. I believe we are off to an excellent start. Our next session will be the session on climate financing and transitioning to the low carbon economy. We will be right here. But of course, you know, we never miss the opportunity to be photographed with the IMF and the bank and our host. So very quickly, we will transition for a photograph, and we will come back for the session. You'll have a little flexibility for coffee break. And I should have told you that number 1 is the English channel, number 2 is Spanish, number 3 is French, number 4 is Arabic. But let us thank our presenters again. And we transition for photograph.